Well, hello everyone. We have people from across the country joining us today. So good morning and good afternoon to those folks from BC all the way through to Ontario. Welcome to today's webinar, From Payroll to Privacy, Optimizing HR Payroll in K-12. I'm Meg Wilson and thrilled to be your host for this session today. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time. First, let me say welcome back to those who joined us for the demo a couple of weeks ago on finance. Here we are again on a Wednesday, so happy hump day. We're halfway through the week, so diving into solutions that can hopefully will make your days easier in the future is a great way to break up your week. And if you're managing HR in a K-12 setting, you certainly know the challenges of juggling payroll, requests for information, privacy assurance, and everything in between. So hopefully today is going to give you something to be really excited about and where things are going for the future of ERP. And today we're here to show you how Sparkrock can simplify your job. So our presenters today, besides myself, as I said, the host is going to be Wendy Brown. She's going to be leading you through a live demo of Sparkrock. But before we do that, a few housekeeping matters to cover off. Cameras are accessible to the moderators and speakers only. You can use the Q&A. So at the top of your screen, there's a Q&A box. You can use that for questions. And please, we mute you, but we just wanted to let you know that you will be muted, so we'll be using the Q&A, and we will be recording this, so we will share the recording at the end of this session, and usually I think it takes a couple of days to come out. All right, so moving along, I'm just going to do a super quick introduction to Sparkrock. I know from the list we've got quite a few people that have actually seen Sparkrock presentations or know who Sparkrock is, but for those who don't, we're just going to do a really high-level overview, and then I'm actually going to hand it over to Wendy and get right into the product because I know that's really what people want to see. But the exciting thing is that stick around after the demo because Wendy at the very end of it is going to give a sneak peek on what's coming in AI in Sparkrock in 2025 and how that's going to actually help HR and payroll in particular do their job a little bit easier. All right, so Sparkrock. For those who aren't familiar with Sparkrock, we've been around for 20 plus years. We're super excited this last year. We merged with Assembly, who also was almost 20 years of experience in the K-12 space. We have a product that's focused on K-12 that is today managing almost 14 billion in finance, almost 11 billion in payroll processed through our application, and over 100,000 employees paid each month through our application. So certainly not only a legacy of history in the space, but also proven success in terms of the number and of clients we're managing and the volume of transactions we're managing. And the Sparkrock Assembly merger has been just super exciting for Sparkrock because we're bringing the best of both of those products together, and many of you have had the opportunity to understand what that means going forward. So a little bit about our ERP application. So we cover the full gamut from finance, HR, payroll. We have an employee portal, which allows employees to check things like payroll and all those things that everybody wants to know about, but as well as employee expense management, which is super, one of the features that a lot of our school boards like is being able to automate that whole expense submission or P-card submission process. And then we also have the SIS application. So we've got a full family of products to meet the needs of K-12. And all of this is a platform that is in the cloud, is secure. You've got the privacy assurances, which I'm going to touch on again at the end of our presentation. So before we get started, we thought we'd have a little fun and do a quick survey. So hopefully you have your phones handy and you can just scan this QR code and let us know what your relationship with your ERP is right now. Are you happily married? Is it complicated? filing for divorce, or newly engaged and hopeful. Broken and seeing spreadsheets on the side. That's my favorite because we all know what happens when things aren't working well. We rely on spreadsheets to help us manage the data. So love to hear. Maybe we can move to the next slide, Bree, and we'll see if we're getting some responses and see what how people are feeling about their ERP. We've got responses. So if you minimize that QR code and maybe do a refresh. We've been experimenting with using these forms, and we've tried this a couple of times. We seem to get it working after the fact. So what we'll do, we'll come back to that at the end because I always love to see what the answer is to these questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Wendy Brown, who's going to step into the product and give you an overview of Sparkrock.
Thank you, Meg. Oh, were you sharing, Bree? Can you put the slides back up? Perfect, thank you. All right, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Still morning for me, and for others here in BC, but across the rest of Canada, maybe you're having your lunch while we're doing our demo today. So I'll be your tour guide, and we're going to be going on a bit of a journey, starting off in human resources, and we're going to start off with the onboarding experience of your new hires. And then from there, we're going to take that new hire, we're going to assign them a position, we're going to assign them compensation, also maybe some benefits. And then we're going to see how that process flows over to payroll. So HR and payroll are one solution. They're not separate solutions, one solution. And how payroll will then approve that new hire, and then we're going to pay them. We're going to do a pay run, and you'll see how that business process works from end to end. And then after we've finished that and looked at some of the reporting, we're also going to look at the employee self-service portal. So how can they view their pay statements, update their personal information, maybe submit a timesheet, for example. So with that, I'm just going to share my screen. Give me one moment. Okay. And Bree, can you just give me a thumbs up that my screen is being shared? Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, so here we are. We are in the HR payroll solution. We can see at the top, we have our menus. We start at HR, moving through, we've got our payroll menus, the employee self-service menus, and then we have our system configuration. So as promised, we're going to start with that onboarding of a new hire. And many of our customers across the country are using applicant tracking solutions. Many use the Apply to Education here in BC called Make a Future. And what this does is offer an integration with that applicant tracking solution. So if I were to click on Import New Hired, that would be an API pull from your applicant tracking solution. And what it will do is bring down all of the new applicants who have been flagged as hired, and it will bring not only their demographic information, but also their degrees, their certifications or qualifications. If they had uploaded any documents with their application in the that solution, those files would also come along. So maybe their proof of certification or um, uh, permanent resident status or that type of thing. Now, you can work with this record, adding notes, attaching documents, and bring them through a process. So maybe their onboarding is in progress, or maybe they've been rejected or declined for whatever reason. But once they are approved, then we're able to go to the next step and access what we call the Add New Employee wizard. So let's just go to that approved employee. So here we can see we have the option to add new employee, and that's going to bring up our step-by-step wizard. All required fields are shaded in yellow, so it's very easy to see what I need to fill in. Of course, not all information is on the application, so I'm manually entering the data that I'm not able to collect on the application. You might have noticed there's data checking as we go through this interface. So for things like birth date, social insurance number, postal codes, like I'm doing here, um, phone numbers, email addresses, those all have data checking built in, so that you can be sure that the data you're entering is in the correct format. I'm just going to delete that email here, and we'll click on next. And so moving next now brings us into the employment tab. So you can see here right now that employee ID has now been assigned. And now I will assign them which location. So which school are they going to be at? Which employee group will they be with? Are they an educator? Yes or no? Has their source documentation been verified? They're most definitely going to be active, and we can enter their original hire date. Now I'm just going to go backwards in time a little bit. In my demo environment, we like to keep lots of buffer in time so we can run through different scenarios. So I'm going to actually hire this person as of April 29th. Oops. I'll use my calendar. April 29th, there we go. And has their criminal record check been completed? And I'm just going to click on next now that all my required fields are completed. It's asking me if I want to add their emergency contact info, but you know what, even better, employees can add this information themselves on the employee self-service portal, which we'll see as we go through our journey today. So I'm just going to save, and we can see that this employee has been successfully created. So they are now part of my employee records, and so I can search on employee records using simple or advanced searching functionality. Here's Morgan or Latoya Morgan, who we just onboarded. And so I'm just going to modify this record. And so this is what we call the employee spotlight. And as you can see, there's different sections to this record. I have employee information, seniority service, position and assignment, etc. Each section of the employee record can be wrapped in permissions. So for example, maybe the compensation section of the employee record is only going to be available to the payroll staff. Or maybe it's a view only instead of a full read-write functionality. So you have the ability to wrap those permissions as well as set those permissions up by user type or role. The first tab, the employee information. So this is all of the information we just added through that employee wizard. Here you can see we also can upload and attach documents here. So for example, maybe I will add those certifications. When attaching digital documents, you can define the document type as well as put expiry dates on that if applicable. So maybe, you know, it's their first aid certification and it expires in a year. The beautiful thing about having those expiry dates is now you can do automated notifications or reminders, letting not only the employees know, but also their supervisors know that they have pending expiring certifications. So let's now assign this employee in a position. So I'm going to come to the position and assignment tab, and I'm going to click on Add New. And so Just like our other screen we saw when we were onboarding the new hire, all of the required fields are in yellow. But we have some tools that are going to help you fill this out. So first of all, we'll go back to our start date, which was April 29th. So I'll just put that in there. And then the next field here available to me is the position ID. So we utilize position control functionality that allows you, by just entering the position ID, to automatically populate this record. If you don't know it, like me, I'm just going to go out and search for that employee ID, and I can execute my search and find my results. And here we can see these are all of the positions at school number 11 for the QP20 employee group. And so I can just select the one that I want. And what you're going to see is this is going to populate my position information based upon that control record. So that includes the GL accounts and any distribution that there might be. So if I did maybe even just for this one employee, maybe they have some special funding and I'm just going to add their distribution and it'll be 50% at each, for example. Okay, so you can control that at the position record, but you can also modify it at the employee side. Now, the position FTE, I'm just going to put in a 1 FTE, for example. And so you'll see that the position hours per week have automatically populated. And that's going to be based upon the type of employee I'm hiring and the contract they're in. So these are all defined in our what we call our employee group. So in this case, my employee group is group 20, QP20, and they work 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. Whereas if I was to change this to a 0.5, for example, you'll see that my position per hours are going to change accordingly. Is this their home location? Yes or no? And let's just take a peek at these other tabs as well while we are in here. I'm going to go to absence and contracts. So this data can also come along with your position control record as well. I didn't have it set up in this case, but your absence group is going to define all of the attendance plans based upon, again, their contract. So union contract, for example. So how many sick days are they supposed to get? How many short-term disabilities? Any rules in regards to rolling of those days? So if I run out of sick days, which bucket does it come from? Is it a reduced pay? So there's a lot of robust functionality around those absence groups that were designed specifically for K-12 school districts. The next tab over is your employee assignment. So further from the position, you can also break out additional assignments. So for example, maybe it's 0.5 in one assignment and 0.5 in another assignment. And so you can make those selections here, including right down to the grade level if need be. So we have our position now created. And so I'm just going to save it. Okay. And if we had any history of positions, or maybe even this employee has 2 positions, so one in different contract groups, that's totally fine. We can manage all of that very effectively and accurately. So now that we have a position, we're now going to assign some compensation. So coming over to the compensation bucket here. Again, I don't have any history because I'm a new employee, so I'm just going to click on Add New. And when assigning compensation, you're going to see I am restricted to just the positions that I am assigned to, right? It's not giving me a big drop-down list here of other positions. Only positions that I am assigned to are going to be available for selection here. And now we are going to assign the category code on the salary grid that this employee will be eligible for. So your every employee group, so in this case, employee group 20 has a salary grid. The salary grid has multiple categories, and each category can have multiple steps. Okay. Let's just see here. There we go. We'll just take step 1. And so we can see at step 1, the compensation rate is 33 $8.16 an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And one of the things you'll notice, actually, before I do that, I just want to point out, you see how this authorization currently says no? That's because it's not yet approved by the payroll team. So they're entered and yes, they have been assigned a position, but it's not yet approved. We can also see here in the compensation, we can see the position and salary records information together. And you can also assign employee allowances here if applicable. So you can have also grids that go with those allowances. I don't think I have any in this employee group. We'll see what we got. Oh, we've got a first aid allowance. And so this again, well, they don't have a, we don't have a grid. Oh, there we go. A grid step on there. Perfect. So I can assign that allowance. And again, these can be controlled and configured by that employee group. We'll take this one back all the way back to April 29th as well. All right. Okay, we got compensation, we've got an allowance. We may also want to assign some benefits. And so here in our benefits screen, you can see that we have the ability to do a quick entry as well as individual entry on those benefits. So you could just do your benefits by selecting them and making the details here one by one. Or there's also a quick entry tool, which I quite like. It allows you to set a default set of benefits that would normally get assigned to this employee group. And then from here, you can choose your coverage code and as opposed to having to do them all individually. To the right, we can see there is an option here for a debit pay. So this is applicable when you have employees on an extended leave of absence, for example, and they still want to receive benefits. So instead of taking any deductions from a pay, you're instead doing a pre-authorized debit from their bank account. So I'm just going to save this. So we've onboarded our new employee, they have a position, they have compensation, and they have some benefits. So the next step in this business process comes over to the payroll team. So I'm going to come over to my payroll menu. And when we look at our payroll screens, you're going to see that these cards are actually in the order of the business process. So the steps that I need to go through in order to run my pay. The first step is the entitlement process. And so what you're going to see here is I'm able to make a selection by employee group. So we'll stick with our QP20 employee group. And the entitlement is going to provide me with an audit report of all changes that have happened that affect employees' pay. So this new hire, for example, will show up in an entitlement report. If the employee had added new benefits, they would show up in an entitlement report. If they had a retro pay, maybe they had a grid step increase, and that would show up in an entitlement report. And so let's just take a look at that entitlement report. They run as a background process. We will get notified here in the taskbar when the report has been completed, and I can always access previously run reports from here as well. All reports are coming out as a PDF as well as an Excel. You have both options. I will just click on the PDF, and that's going to open up for me. And so I'm just going to come down to this next record. So here's Latoya Morgan. Let me just blow this up so you can see this really well. So Latoya was we hired her as of April 29th, and we can see the details around that. So her salary, the start date, the end date. So we didn't have an end date on that record. So the end date is just going as far forward as my contract year. So in this case, the demo environment, the contract year for this group is ending in June 22nd. We can see the salary grid category code, the grid step, their FTE, their hours, and their annual rate. And that will also then, if this employee, if this was a scenario where they had changed positions, or maybe they're coming in halfway through a pay period or that type of thing, it would automatically calculate a salary adjustment for them or any retroactive pay. We'll continue down, and so we can see also on the second page, still with Latoya, all of the benefits that we added. Okay, so this is an audit report of everything that's happened that affects an employee's pay. So after it is reviewed, the payroll team would authorize those changes. If they don't want to authorize them, they can remove them. But I'm just going to do a group authorization, and we're going to work with this employee group 20, and I'm just going to submit that. So business processes are going through in the background process, and once that is authorized, we will move to our next step. So let's just take a look here. Make sure it's finished before we go to our next step. So we can see here it's in process, and you can also search in here. So if there's anything you ever want to search on, you can just search on it and find the previously run reports that match that criteria. We're just going to go back to our all here. So our group authorization process has finished. So coming back to my step-by-step payroll process, we've done the entitlement, we've done the authorization. We're going to skip over the debit pay. We're not doing that scenario today, but what we're going to do now is we're going to schedule our groups. So I'm just working with one employee group today, but you can work with multiple employee groups at the same time. It doesn't need to be just one like I'm working with here right now. So I'm going to schedule this group. We can see this group, employee group 20, their pay number, the pay period, right? In this case is April 28th to May 11th. In this example, they don't have any percentage of their salary that's spread out across each pay, and so it's just a regular pay. So from here, then I am going to go on to my next step, which is the pay run. So I'm going to click on the pay run, and it is only going to do the pay run for those employee groups that I have scheduled. Oh, maybe I didn't schedule it. Sorry. I just talked about it. There we go. Okay. All right, so coming to our pay run now. I'll just submit that. And so the pay run is going to produce a number of reports for you. But the most important of those reports is the pay register. And so when it comes to the pay register, you have some options. Like, what is the primary sorting? Do you want it to sort it by employee group? So that would be important if you're running multiple employee groups. Do you want those employee groups printed as a separate report? Maybe it's the end of the year, and for this pay run, you might want to show the pay register for all employees who have year-to-date data. You also can get a report on EI hours that are mismatched, or reports on any deviations from normal tax rules. So it's either 10% less than their gross or greater than 50%. And as you can see, these are variables that I can manipulate based upon my needs. So here we're looking at our pay run. It's started its process. And so we'll just let that finish. And so if we want, while we're waiting for that to finish, I'll just go to one of my previous pay runs so you can see all the outputs. So I mentioned them there, but here we've got, approximately 10 reports, and that includes your teacher's pension plan, service credit allocation. If this was a teacher group, it includes your tax exceptions like we just discussed. It'll also inform you if there's any pay input for inactive employees, a message log, pay register, which is the meat and bones of what we're doing here right now, timesheets for inactive employees, as well as informing if there are any negative balances. So let's just see how our pay run is just finished. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that, and I'm going to come into the pay register. Okay, so let's take a look and we'll find that employee that we just hired. So essentially the pay register, as we mentioned, is going to be sorted in this case by employee's first name. Here's Morgan Latoya, who we just hired. So we can see any other pay details here, including their allowance. And we can see any rebate if applicable. To the right of that, we have their deductions, including this pay, their year-to-date amount. And then we can also see the school board's share of that and their year-to-date, as well as if there's any taxable on that. So this, as I mentioned, is going to run for all employees. We do get a summary report at the total bottom. So we get our pay register total. So in this pay amount, where we got a total net pay here of 145,400, and so we get all of the summary details for the entire register. It also does the summary by employee group. So in this case, my employee group summary and my pay register are identical because I only ran one employee group. But when running multiple employee groups, these summaries are very helpful. All right, so one of the most common questions we get when we're out in the marketplace is, after I've run the pay, can I roll it back? And so you have the option after reviewing your reports, you can either roll it back, in which case there will be no entries into any of the pay tables, and you would just start that business process over again. So maybe you need to make some changes to an employee's record. You would make those changes, you would run an entitlement and go through the process. We're going to go ahead and confirm the pay. So I'll just submit that. And again, we'll just wait for that to finish. And then once it's confirmed and that business process has completed, we would then be able to run the checks and EFTs. Okay, so the confirmed pay has now completed. So I'm going to move on to our next step in the business process, which is to run our checks and EFTs. So we can see that there's 8 checks ready for me to process, and there's 238 EFTs ready for me to process. And I'm just going to define my EFT with the additional details and go ahead and submit that. So this process of running the checks and EFTs not only puts those files in a secure location for you to upload to the bank, but also at this same time, it is updating the pay statements for these employees in the employee self-service portal, so that they are now able to go and see their pay statement as soon as this process is run. But before we do that, let's go and take a look at some of the reports that we might want to get out of the pay system. So under the reporting menu, we can see there are pay period reports. So with the pay period reports, you have your teacher's pension plan frequent reporting, you have your Revenue Canada liability reports. So every employee group can be defined with a Revenue Canada number, right? Yeah, there's several, I'm sure, that you use within your school board. You can see you've got a garnishee list, your benefit contributions, employee pay histories, a pay records report, and a family support list. So from here, we'll go to our monthly reports. So in the monthly reports, there's now your WCB periodic reporting, your health tax calculations, your MPP service reports, as well as pay totals by month. As we look at the annual reports, depending what jurisdiction you're in, we're across Canada. So depending on what jurisdiction you're in, the types of reports that are accessible here would be different. So jurisdictional compliance is one of our strengths in the K-12 education market. Okay, so let's go and take a look at what this will look like from the employee self-service perspective. So even though I'm logged in here right now as a manager, I'm still an employee of the school board, right? So I have the option here. I'm going to come to the employee self-service menu, which we can see here. And I'm also going to change my dashboard to the employee dashboard. So obviously, staff who are not administrators of this system, this is all they would have access to is the employee self-service. Managers as well, the manager's self-service where they can approve things and review details about their staff at their school is all done from the employee and manager self-service portal. But the first thing we're looking at here as an employee is my attendance plan, right? So remember when we are onboarding that new hire and we assign them an absence group? Well, in this example, this employee that I have here, their absence group includes a teacher sick plan, teacher adoption days, short-term leave. And so this is showing how many days are available as well as how many days were allocated. So this is designed to align with your unions, your collective agreements and contracts. So what do employees mostly use the portal for? Well, of course, finding out what they got paid. So we're going to actually look at our pay statement here. And so we're able to not only see the last one, but we can have a list of all previous pay statements as well. And it's going to include our earnings, our deductions, as well as we scroll down, it will include any taxable benefits, the total board share, the net pay, annual pay, as well as any days not paid. So if they've used up all their buckets or their absence reason is a days not paid, then that would show for them here. Other things that employees will use the employee self-service portal for is to update their personal information. So a big time saver for your HR team, they can come in here and update their personal information. Maybe they moved, maybe they got married and changed their name, or maybe they are changing their bank information. So what you see here that's available to change, you are able to configure that. So I talk to a lot of school boards who don't want the bank information to be changed through the employee self-service portal. General information, emergency contacts, they can manage all that here. But it's not going to commit it to the database right away. What we can see here is it's now in a status of entered, and it's going to go through an approval process before these changes will take effect. So these are the changes that I've submitted for approval. I'm moving to 200 Demo Way, Kelowna, BC, and when it's approved, my address will now be updated in the HR system, including, of course, for payroll, because we're one system, HR and payroll. And also, if they are in finance, maybe they're an expense vendor, for example, it would update their address in the finance system as well. Another big time saver for school boards is publishing the T4s. I don't have any published up here in my demo environment, of course, but you have a full history here, including T4As. Our system has the ability to generate the T4s for you en masse, and all the tools built in to manage not only that, but also records of employment and is built to work a lot like school districts work, right? So maybe you have to mass lay off certain types of employees at different times of the year, like maybe at Christmas break, you're doing a mass ROE, or spring break or summer. So we've got the tools to make that super easy for you. Employees can always see their salary progression, and this employee that I'm working with right now has 2 positions. We can see the start date, their FTE, what their salary category and step is, and what their compensation rates are. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what that timesheet entry looks like. So I'm going to come into my timesheet. These are all of my previously entered timesheets, and I'm just going to click on New. So it's going to default to my current work week. If I have more than one position, like you see I do here, I would choose the position that I'm entering the timesheet for. And from there, I'm then going to be continuing to build out my timesheet just by clicking on this new button. So this new is creating a new line here, we can see, and I'm going to make some selections. So the first selection I'm going to make is my earning code. So if you have, maybe I was working overtime, I could maybe use an earning code of overtime. You also can have shift premiums, which is a premium on top of their regular hourly rate. So maybe it's a midnight shift premium, for example, an extra 50 cents an hour. You use your shift codes to drive that. So from here, we're going to just start entering our hours per day. So we'll just put in 4 hours a day, for example. Now I'm going to make this one 10 just so I can show you a neat feature. So this is looking at my budgeted hours, and if I'm over those budgeted hours, it's going to show up in red, as we can see here. So it's bringing me visually and letting me know that I'm over my budgeted hours, and I can make that correction before I even submit it. So helping to keep your data clean before it even gets over to the HR or their supervisor for approval. So I would just submit that, and now that's gone off to my supervisor to approve the timesheet, from where it will then flow into payroll. We won't be going through the payroll process of a timesheet today, but we'd be happy if you'd like to see that, to do it in another session. We're now going to go into the sneak peek, as Meg promised you, of the AI tools that are coming to Sparkrock 365. So I'm just going to open up my preview of this. And so what is going to be available coming in 2025 is you're going to see that Copilot can now be embedded within the application, right within my finance system is where it will be coming first, and then from there we'll be coming into HR payroll. But it's not like any regular, chat AI, because it's actually looking at your financial transactions in your finance system to give you the answers. So for example, I'm going to say, how many posted purchase invoices this year? So it can not only bring me back the data from my financial transactions, but it also can do some summary calculations for me. It can link me to the direct page where I would find those results with the filters automatically built in, which I just love. And I really truly believe this is going to change the way our users use our system on a day-to-day basis. So here we can see I have 55 posted purchase invoices this year. Great. That could, in some cases, and depending on your system, that may be difficult to find out. We can always see a reference of where it got the information, and also I can link directly to that page. So what I love about this is it's automatically putting that filter in there for me. I could even be a nested filter. So maybe I wanted all posted purchase invoices greater than $1,000 or $10,000, and it would automatically create that filter for me. Further from that, so not just the chat, what we're going to see is that the AI tools are pervasive across all of your pages now in the finance system. And so that includes the analyze list. So that allows me to build reports using just natural language. There are different types of prompts that you can use to help you along the way. Whoops. So for example, a prompt guide, I can add structure to this report, sort and filter, or even adjust my layout. So here, very natural language, generate a report that shows the remaining amount by vendor, pivot the data by the month of the due date, and exclude any that are closed. And I'm also going to ask it to rename my tab that the report's going to be in to webinar. And so the AI tool is going to build that report for me. We can see we have the months at the top, March, October, November. We have our tab renamed webinar. And if I wanted more information, maybe I want to drill down to invoice. So again, just using natural language, I can modify this report. I can also use, at the same time, use the pivot tools that are built into the system here. But once I've got the report the way I want it, I can keep it or I can discard it. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it. Okay. And so that tool is available across all your pages, not just your posted purchase invoices pages, but your general ledger, every page that you are accessing transactional data on. Other areas where the Copilot AI is going to make a big difference for school boards is in the reconciliation process. So you can see it's front and center here in my reconciliation process. I can use this to guide me through the import, but I've already prepared some data. So I'm just going to go ahead and come into our checking. And so we have some options here. So we got the reconcile with Copilot. And so it's going to look at my ledger entries as well as the statement that I've imported and provide a match. Now, I think I matched this one on my last demos. Normally I get 100% here. But there's the auto match and then there's the Copilot match. And again, you can keep it or discard it. And then you can use the AI tool to post any unmatched differences to a GL. In addition to the bank reconciliation, for customers who are using OCR, capabilities for receiving their invoices, this is a tool that will match an invoice with your purchase order. And so it's pretty neat the way it works. What we're going to see here is it's going to find us matches. So our regular auto match technique was 0 of 5 lines, so no matches at all. Copilot matched 5 of 5, so all lines were matched. And it's interesting when you look at this. So the e-document, so the incoming invoice from the vendor, the line item said Colombian roasted coffee. Whereas if I look at the proposal here, we can see the e-document description and we can also see the purchase order description. So the purchase order said whole roasted beans, Colombia. And it was able, using the AI tool, to find the match and provide the suggestion to me. And now I have the option to either keep it or discard it. And so those tools are, as you see, go beyond just the chat. Furthermore, when you're within the system and you're hovering on specific fields, you will also get an option. Let me just come back to one of my pages here. So for example, whenever I hover on a field or a column, I can ask Copilot and it's going to bring it into the chat here. It is going to be a great tool for reducing the amount of time that it takes to onboard new hires and the time it takes for them to reach productivity, providing step-by-step instructions on how to do business processes or find data. So we look forward to that coming in 2025, first to finance and then to HRP. So I'll just come back to our slides here. Give me one moment.
I've got it. Wendy, you're good.
Okay.
Bree's going to
Okay.
take
Very
it
good.
over.
All right.
And
Thank you.
yeah, and keep in mind, I know that those examples are sort of finance focused with AI, but just take what you're seeing there and imagine all the application within HR payroll. And you know, we're already doing some stuff where, as an example, you'll be able to have your key documents. So a lot of documents that like benefits plans or employee union contracts, where the employee will be able to do those searches from the employee portal and look up specifics like, am I covered for orthodontics for my kids, or some of those things that we hear over and over again. There's a lot of calls into the HR department asking questions where it's buried in documentation, and particularly in the last few years where there's been a lot of turnover, sometimes even the HR team doesn't know the answers. They have to look through documents. So let's expose that. Let's make that part of the portal where people can self-serve some of those questions that they normally call HR. So lots of exciting things. We've been spending time for actually over a year meeting with clients, understanding the use cases for AI, and finance is the low-hanging fruit. So we're starting there, but exciting things to come for sure. All right. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that everybody understands is that, you know, this application is very secure. You know, unlike some applications out there where they were maybe an on-premise and it's the same technology that's now being hosted somewhere on a server, the application was built with cloud in mind. It is hosted in an extremely secure location, all within Canada, and data redundancy within Canada. Full data encryption, you know, secure transactions, things like when it comes to compliance, like ongoing like penetration tests, all of the things that are really important when we're dealing with people's privacy, and particularly when we're talking about HR and payroll. So really want to make sure everybody understands this is a modern platform developed for the cloud, with all of the key security features that you would expect from a modern platform. All right, now, Bree, I think you got a few responses, not a lot. I guess you guys were so focused that you didn't have your phones out, so thank you for that. But look at those results, broken and seeing spreadsheets on the side. Hey, I was in finance, and actually HR payroll was under me, and I remember those days. Way too many spreadsheets. So, you know, we're always motivated to try to move the data out of spreadsheets and back to the security and privacy. We want them all within the system that is secure and privacy is ensured. You know, certainly don't want to see people walking around with necklaces with USBs hanging off them, as an example. And the spreadsheet is kind of close to that, depending on your environment. So super thank you to the 6 people that responded. All right, we can open it up to questions. So I believe we had one that I've already responded to. Okay, so another one, Riley, is there an option to have them upload a void check or bank form if they're entering a bank information update? Yeah, Wendy? So to update their bank automatic deposit.
Right. Yeah. So when, as you saw, when I was doing that employee profile, right? You as the HR department can request for backup documentation through a digital workflow. So you can say require backup documentation, and that process allows them to digitally attach and send the documentation to you.
Great, thanks, Wendy. And then we had another question earlier around integration. So we had mentioned Applied to Ed. I mean, we do a lot of work with Applied to Ed and have an out-of-the-box integration, but of course, we also have clients that are using Frontline. So yes, we can integrate to that. Again, modern solutions. So we have modern APIs. Usually if there's challenges, it's if you're on very old systems and you can't get the data out. But I know we have integrations with Frontline. And Brianne, I think you mentioned that there was a question submitted in advance.
Yes, we had someone say, please explain the process, if possible, around how HR and payroll are one system and how HR changes would impact payroll and pay processes.
That's a
Yeah.
really good question. And it's so relevant because we've been talking about this recently because, you know, part of the change management for a lot of our customers is the fact that it's one system. So if HR changes something, it's going to impact payroll. And for organizations that have come off systems where maybe that wasn't integrated because it was acquired after the fact, that can have a huge impact because payroll's used to kind of managing all their employees and their data to make sure they're paid properly, and HR has the data set the way they want it. So when you suddenly move to a system where those two pieces are integrated, you actually need to spend some time looking at a racing matrix, understanding of everybody's responsibility and who owns that data. But I'm going to now get Wendy to kind of elaborate on that from the technology standpoint.
Yeah, well, hopefully I was able to demonstrate that today, how within the application from the time that employee got hired, the business process moves over to payroll, where payroll has the final authorization before anything's going to get paid. But that employee record is already there for payroll. They don't have to double enter. They don't have to put, you know, their address in twice or their bank information in twice. It all is one application. And then the security and privileges are very granular. You know, that pay process I went through, you can wrap permissions around every one of those business processes, right? So maybe it's just one person's job to do the entitlements. So that entitlement is what is informing you in payroll of all the changes that have happened to employees' records that affect pay. I see a question in the chat here as well. Do you want me to take that one?
Yes, please.
So the question is, do you have within the HR function modules for automated dispatch, disability management, leave management, health and safety, etc.? So we do have the ability for you to manage those absences. There's a workflow, but we do not have automated dispatch as an organization. We work with our partners. Again, it could be applied education, it could be frontline, it could be others. We're really agnostic when it comes to which automated dispatch solution you might want to use. But within our application itself, there you do have the interface and the workflow for not just a regular absence, but also those leaves of absence. So, you know, are they on maternity leave, or is it a health and safety WCIB claim? Maybe it's a gradual return to work plan, right? So there is that in the employee spotlight. There's a section called approved leaves, where that would all be managed.
Great, thanks, Wendy. And you know, this is just a little slice of what we have to offer. You know, certainly we're available to do a deeper dive with a board or even with a few boards, because I know there's a few boards that have been talking to one another. And if you wanted to get in deeper and understand what all those modules do, certainly we can help coordinate something so that we're spending, you know, a good hour and a half versus less than an hour at looking at what's available. All right. Any other questions? I don't see any. So again, well, thank you so much for attending today. And for those returning, thanks once again as well. As I said, more than willing to do something a little deeper and in depth. And, you know, if there's specific questions, you know, reach out to the team, one of these emails, and we will make sure that we can address those questions. All right.
Thank,
Well, thanks everyone. Have a
thank
good rest
you.
of your day.